Today on Running to Him.
John wrote his stories of Christ so that others might believe. What is your story? Today's reading from the reading plan is John 20, verse 19 through John 21, verse 25, and we will concentrate on verses 20, 30 through 31, and 21 through 24 through 25. John 20, verse 30 through 31 says, "Therefore many other signs Jesus also performed in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book. But these have been written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. This is the disciple who testified to these things and wrote these things. We know that his testimony is true. And there are also many other things which Jesus did, which, if they were written in detail, I suppose even the world itself would not be able to contain the books that would be written." The Gospel of John ends with a statement of the overwhelming numbers of things which Jesus did in his lifetime on earth, both pre- and post-resurrection. The reason that John wrote about the specific things which Jesus did was to show that any of those who read his gospel, that Jesus had the power to change lives because he is the Messiah and he is God. So I'd like to suggest an exercise for you. I've created a form that you can use to write a story about how Christ and God the Father did specific things or something in your life to bring you to where you are today. You don't have to use the form, but you can write it out by hand or just type it in. As an example, I'd like to briefly share what God had to do to bring Tony and me together. Now, I grew up in Lower Connecticut from 1950 to 1961, and I was raised in a very affluent family who lost all their money after President Kennedy's election through some risky investments. We moved to Arizona, where I lived from 1961 until 1968. I did very poorly in school and was not mature enough or academically qualified to go to college. In May of 1968, we moved back to Connecticut after my father's death. Because I was not in college, I was a perfect candidate for the draft, and almost immediately after my 19th birthday, I received my draft notice. I entered the Army on December 10, 1968, but not began active duty until February of 1970. After basic training, I went to Alabama for advanced training, and where in my free time, I became a member of the United States Figure Skating Association. After graduation from my advanced training, I was assigned to Gießen, Germany. One day, a friend of mine and I spoke about my ice skating training, and when we began to search for an ice skating rink that might be open. There were very few rinks open as it was summer, but we did find one in Bad Nauheim, Germany. And one weekend in August, Carrie, his wife Sherry, and I went skating. And because Sherry could not skate well, she held onto the rail, and a stunning young dark-haired woman came up and offered to help her. When I saw her, I skated over to her, and we were married 11 months later. To show you how God moved in her life, I'll briefly tell you her story. Tony's family moved from an impoverished village in Crete, Greece, to Germany in 1966. They followed her older sister, who moved there to go to the university and ultimately medical school. The summer she arrived in Bad Nauheim, Tony was tutored by a German couple, and through their help, she and her two sisters enrolled in a Catholic school rather than German public schools. Tony learned to ice skate, and she decided one August day not to go swimming with her sisters, but to go ice skating. She saw Sherry struggling and skated over to help. The rest, they say, is history. Now, without God working in Tony's and my life, we would have never met, fallen in love, and married. Now, there are many more parts to the story, but those which you have read or heard give you an idea of how God had to move two families and governments so that we would meet and marry. What is your story? Write it out and put it on the Running to Him Facebook page, or email it to me at phineasjacobus@runningtohim.net, and I'll send out a link where others can read the story of how God intervened in your life.
Thank you for listening. We pray that today's devotion was meaningful to you. We would love to hear from you. You can use either Facebook or YouTube to like, subscribe, share, and tell others about us. If you would like to contact us, you can reach me at phineasjacobus@runningtohim.net.